Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Okay, we are from 8th semester. We will present about multiple intelligence and class environment.
The members group is AAA,
Alvi,
Ainul,
Alif.
Okay.
Okay, next to the first presenter. Times is yours.
Okay, the first slide. The definition of MI is the ability to solve problem and produce product in a variety of setting and real situation. Okay, so what is the definition of theory MI? Okay, the definition of theory MI is theory MI to solve real problem and in various situations. So theory MI focus to solve real problem. Nah, okay, next. Okay, second slide. Okay, MI and ecological factors in learning. Ecological factors are very influential on the development of students' intelligence. In effect, whether it is good or bad on the development of students' intelligence. Now, so the answer is consistently the classroom environment is skewed to the negative side of the ecological nature. Then learning tends to be significantly disrupted. On other hand, answer the tend towards the positive factors listed above will improve the classroom environment. Now, so the point is, if a class is said to be capable or positive, and then as a class is growing, and vice versa. Okay, like that. Okay, next slide. MI activity centers. Activities in the classroom are very influential. In other words, supportive activities can help students develop their intelligence. Now, so there are 4 key activities that can help the development of students' intelligence. So there are 4 K. There are 4 K for development student intelligence. Okay. Next.
The first activity is permanent open-ended activity center. Okay, the first activity is permanently open-ended center. I like to say is a first quadrant. Okay, what is permanently open-ended activity, or say quadrant 1, is a student will be practice to the place directly. So the point is student will be practice to the place directly. An example, student will be go to library. Student will go to library and read a book, read an article, and read dictionary, and so on. So the point is there are 4 The point is, at this stage, student will be given an open experience of the intelligence they have. So the students will the students will be practice to place directly. An example is an example go-to library. What is purpose student go-to library? Student will be read some book, read some dictionary, and read some article to purpose make a reference. Okay, the next slide. Okay, the next is temporary open-ended activity. Just like I said, this activity is second quadrant. But in the second quadrant, in this activity, students will be interacted to science activities. It aims to support their intelligence for this activity in very susceptible field by playing with games. In quadrant second, this activity is a side activity where students interact directly by playing games or playing games. For example, in musical intelligence, students will give games such as chorus or performance. Next. The third is temporary topic activity, specific activity. Just like say, is this activity is a third quadrant. But in this activity, in the third quadrant, in this activity, they are focused on the special activity, namely looking at material, whereas each student collects knowledge from intelligence. In a quadrant, this is an activity where students do what they know and what they read. For example, in a musical class or in musical intelligence, such as students listening song, trying to make their own songs. Okay, the next slide.
Okay, so on this slide discussion, we go back to the explanation from of Mr. Ainul and Mr. Alif, starting with definition of multiple intelligence, ecological factors, and various centers of activity. That I will be clear on 4 points of the variety. So, from point quadrant 1 and quadrant 2 and 3, we can conclude that at quadrant 1, the first quadrant, student activity is practiced directly to its place, such as the example in linguistics, students are required to practice to the library. On quadrant 2, students are required to practice at the game, as at linguistics, as is said to play. On the third quadrant, students are required from language playing and so on. Okay, the last slide is permanent topic specific or safety and activity center or quadrant 4. Okay, the next is quadrant 4. The last student activity will be given an assignment to test how much knowledge was in the previous activity. Okay, so in this quadrant 4 represent an activity center, which is basically a combination of the first quadrant, sustain and permanent, and the third quadrant, that is topic and temporary, center of activity. As an example, in the linguistic, that is students are required for the practice of writing a poem. I will give you some example. For example, like this: write a poem that what you plan to do during the summer. So, in this quadrant 4, basically is that student practice more deep than quadrant 1 entry points, which is writing and so on. Okay, for the last slide is student choice and activity centers. The activity center gives students opportunity to be involved in activity learning. So in this final discussion, students are given the opportunity to engage in activity learning, such as in the first quadrant and the second quadrant, and the third quadrant and the fourth quadrant. Students are more based on the target learning. Okay, I think enough from VR group. Any questions so far?